Yeah. Yes. Good evening. We are going to discussing about metamorphic and sedimentary petrology and the formations of a sedimentary rock that we will see. And before going to that, what are the topics we are going to cover? And that's also we have to see once. I'll tell you that the formations in a sedimentary petrology. The first unit it's talking about formation of a sedimentary rocks. In second unit, sedimentary rocks properties. Third unit, classification of a sedimentary rocks. Metamorphic petrology. It's a block 2. And again, it has a 3 units. For unit 4, metamorphism, agents and kinds. Unit 5, mineralogical characters of metamorphic rocks. Unit 6, textures, structures, and classification of a metamorphic rocks. Block 3, it is a metamorphic petrology. Second part, it contains magma and metamorphism. Unit 8, metaclastic metamorphism. Unit 9, that's the thermal metamorphism. The block 4, the metamorphic petrology, dynamothermal metamorphism, plutonic metamorphism, typical Indian rocks. These are all overall contents we have in this semester. And along with that, we have 2 elective skill enhancement courses. That is the one from geochemistry, and second one it is a remote sensing and GIS. That is also we need to discuss. Yeah, now coming into the formation of a sedimentary rocks. The formation of a sedimentary rocks means how they are going to be formed, depending on the weathering, erosion, and including with other processes. These rocks which are derived from pre-existing rocks. These are formed by the process of weathering, transportation, and deposition. That means here, from the pre-existing rocks, these rocks are getting the disintegrated parts. Those disintegrated parts which are transported to one place to another. And these particles which are settled down in a basin. And the basin it is fulfilled by the or filled up by this sediment material. Layer by layer, these are all the transport. These are all the deposits. They are mainly results of a surface process which have produced the raw material of which they are composed, also some have originated through the process due to the accumulation, compaction, and consolidation is taking the place in the presence of water, at least the little amount of presence of water. The maximum majority of the sedimentary rocks is consisting maximum of sediments which are broken into from pre-existing rocks by the action of weathering agents and transporting such as wind, water, ice, and glacier particles also. These sediments are transported for a long distance and which are deposited in the shallow of a land surface. Yeah, we know that as it's on the sea floor, river bank or a lake floor, the sediments carried in a suspension and which are deposited when the velocity of a transporting agents which checked if there any change into the deposited in the velocity or transporting agents. If there is any change where they're transporting to one place to the another, definitely they may get physical changes depending on their conditions. And the material it is carried out in a solution and it's a deposited either the precipitation due to some changes of physical or chemical conditions required for changing. There are three types of process involved in the formation of a sedimentary rocks. One, it is weathering. Second one, it is a transportation. Third one is deposition. Next, we see the weathering. What it is a weathering? Weathering, it is a loosening and breakdown of a rocky material. That's from the pre-existing rock. And it's a association into the crust. And these particles are very finer and finer particles which are influenced by physical and chemical agents. That means there are physical and chemical agents will impact on these sediment material. In the presence of these physical and chemical actions, the material it is going to be divided into the small particles or divided into the very fine particles, which results in the formation of covering of the rocks. It is known as the waste material on the top of a layer of the surface. It is called as a regolith. So that due to these chemical and physical activities on finer particles and the waste material it is remain on the surface of Earth. The material it is called as a regolith. And it is involving with the two processes. One, it is a mechanical weathering, and second one, it is a chemical weathering. Yeah, commonly, we know that operate together. It's depending upon local conditions and circumstances. And one more thing, it is the third type of weathering. We know that it is a biological weathering. One, it is a physical weathering. Second one, it is a chemical weathering. The physical weathering means mechanical weathering. Second one, it is chemical weathering. Third one is biological weathering. And here the both mechanical and chemical aspects are involved. When you come into the mechanical weathering, we know that there are high hills and mountains which are located in different areas, and also we have desert regions and some of the areas which are covered by the ice particles or ice. There, this type of a mechanical weathering, it is going to be dominant. The disintegration, it is a mode. It's a breaking the rocks. The most common agents for mechanical weathering, the main are abrasion, frost action, temperature, etc., etc. But the most generally effective agent of a mechanical weathering, that is abrasive action. In this case, the grains which are carried by the agents, which are capable of weathering away from the hardest rock. The abrasion, it is also, which is affecting the grains themselves, sometimes due to the mutual collision. The effectiveness of abrasion, it depends upon some factors. What are those factors? It sometimes maybe depend on the hardness of a rock and cohesiveness of a rock bearing weather. And second one, it is a hardness, size and abundance of the sediment material. Third one is the velocity of transportation. Fourth one is the medium of transportation. The resistance of the rocks to abrasion does not depend simply on hardness and the toughness of minerals. But sometimes it is depend on the compactness of grains. Suppose example for the pores of a sandstone. If you can see the sandstone, the material it can contain the porous material. And it's containing the resistance of a quartz. It is more easily to erode when compared to the non-porous material like a marbles or a limestone. Whereas, if you see in a non-porous limestone, it contains a much softer minerals like a calcite, or sometimes maybe it's associated with the dolomite also. So the what's happening? In a limestone, the calcite grains are very close compaction having, and the grains are interlocking to the very closely one grain to the another grain. The effectiveness of abrasion, it's a depend on the material or depend on the tools, like a moving grains and the water without the sediment and it's flowing on rock into the effective. Yes, it requires the energy to the disintegration and it's depend upon the movement of agents that transport to the sediments. The three major agents media transportation are one air, second one it is water, and ice particles also helping to that. Second one, it is frost action. The frost action, which occurs in the freezing of your water in your freezers, tends to disrupt the rocks into angular fragments. The weathering by frost action, it's a more common on mountain at a high altitudes. Yes, this process is capable to disintegration of a rocks. In all the major group of a rocks, it's provided maybe such as bedding plains of sedimentary rocks, schistosity plains in sharing of metamorphic rocks, and some fractures where we can see in granitic rocks or igneous rocks. Then what is happening into this the fractures or into this bedding plains or into this sharings, the water it will be entered. What will happen after enter the water? When the water entered into this fractures, so the water it has a capability to occupy the space where it is available the space. It will penetrate into that fractures or into that space, and the volume it is going to be increased very slowly. So that what is happening? The pressure it is creating between the fractures. So automatically it's slowly it is going to be breakdown. And sometimes maybe the process is taking place in areas it subjected to the freezing temperatures. So here, the water, whenever the water it is entered into these cracks or fractures, and it's getting to the freezing. So if it is getting to the freezing, means the volume it is going to be increasing. The volume, if it is increased between that rocks, and it's creating the creating the fractures, and the gaps are going to be increased between the fracture of formation. Another one, which is the thermal action or temperature changes. The alteration of extreme temperatures, maybe it is a day and night. If you see the fluctuations we'll get in the temperatures in daytime, it is a different, and nighttime it is a different. So that the alteration of extreme, the temperature day and a night, it helps to shatter the rocks. We know that the rocks are not good conductors for heat, so that it's exposed and expanded during the daytime due to high temperature, and it's a contract when the temperature falls during the night time. Thus, the rocks disintegrates into the layers. So here, the exfoliation it is going to be created due to this fluctuation of temperature. In a daytime, it has a temperature, it's different when compared with the night time. So that the volume it is going to be increased, it's going to be expanding. And the volume it is decreasing. Due to this process, the exfoliation is happened by this temperature fluctuations. It was happen within a rock. Alternatively, the rock is getting the expansion and the contraction. So that there may be a chance again, the rock it is going to be cutting down or breaking into down the small pieces. Another one is chemical weathering. In a chemical weathering, the alteration of a rocks by the chemical decomposition is brought about by different agents. The chemical weathering is accomplished by the action of carbon dioxide, water, and oxygen. The chemical weathering it includes many chemical processes like solution, oxidation, and reduction. And we know that hydration, and carbonation. The rate of chemical weathering varies greatly from region to region. The moderate temperature and abundant moisture accelerate a chemical reaction. Therefore, the process is more rapid and important in warm region when compared with the cold or very hot region. When coming to this the carbonation, in a carbonation, the chemical reaction involving the CO2 are among the most important in nature. The reaction of carbonates, bicarbonates with different minerals. The carbonation involves the biological action and with the help of a hydration. Here, what's happening in a carbonation? In a carbonation, particularly, it's playing the major role by the carbon dioxide. And as well as it's a mixing of the water with the carbon dioxide there. And it's making as a carbonic acid. Yeah, this type of weathering is very important, particularly in the formation of a caves. Here, the dissolving of the carbon dioxide in a rainwater or in a moist water, it forms as a carbonic acid also. And again, this rainwater and it's reacting with the minerals in a rock. Coming to the hydration. In hydration, it's a chemical bonds between the minerals. It is going to be changed when the water is interacting with the same minerals. The hydration is occurs as the mineral anhydrate and it reacts with the groundwater. In many of your rocks, example for sodium, if it is interacting with the water, that is going to be formed as a salt water or salt solution. Again, sometimes some earth metals, they will be dissolved and easily removed to leaving behind the clay minerals, whatever we have. And just you see here, observe the equation. Suppose orthoclase, it is reacting with water and carbon dioxide. Then it is going to be formed as a kyanite and silica, potassium carbonate if the final output gives to us. Instead of that the same, we can see the sodium carbonate and calcium bicarbonate may be removed from the lithoclase feldspar. Ferromagnesium silicate also, it's also getting the similar changes. Yeah, based on this process, as the silicate changes into the soft minerals, and thus the strength of a rock generally which is reducing and decomposing and disintegrate will be done. In a hydration process, we see that in a hydration process, the mage minerals takes up into the water, so getting that expanded. So that if the water it will be enter into this the cracks of the rock or the cracks of the rock, and it's getting the pressurized stress within the rock, and it is a reduce the durability. It's a complex process that acts on silicates, feldspars, and magnesium minerals, and it's a produce the variety of a clay. It is a dependent upon the nature of a silicon minerals. And one more thing, it is oxidation and reduction. The oxidation is a loss of electrons. It is a common procedure, a common process in chemical weathering. It's involved with different minerals, and it's reacting with the different minerals. And especially it has iron-bearing minerals with oxygen. We know that iron is a very important and cheap constant of many minerals or rocks. If these type of iron-bearing conditions are susceptible to chemical weathering through the process of oxidation and reduction. We know that the effect of oxidation and the reduction, it's very easily distinguished by a color change. The iron is changed into the ferric state to give an orange or a red brown color. Here, the main thing it is oxidation. It's a loss of electrons or an increase in the oxidation state of an atom, and anion, a certain atoms in a molecule is going to be reduced. When you come into the reduction is gain the electrons. It's gain the electrons, or it's a decrease the oxidation state of an atom. So as per that, the ions sometimes maybe lost their energy, sometimes maybe they are gain the energy. The next one, it is like biological weathering. It is the plants and the majorly it's related with the biological parts. Plants and animals may contribute to the weathering process. A biological action may be either maybe it's chemically it will be happen, or physically it is going to be happen. That's whatever material is released by the plants or animals, which is growing into the roots and exert the pressure, and then they will be entered into the deepening of rocks, and those rocks which are getting the weaken and break up. Due to the remarkable and penetrating, expanding power of a roots or a rocks, and they also provide the openings which allow air and water whenever it's enter into that. The animal extraction or excretions provide acids which promote to decay. Coming to the transportation. In transportation, it's playing a very important role in deposition of rocks. It's a the sediment material which are transported by the sliding down of slopes. It's being flicked up by winch or by being carried of a different material. The moment it is determined by the interplay of gravity, as per the gravity, the other three agents will be also impacting air, water, and ice. The gravity causes the materials so settle to lower level. But it's moving the median deflects settling from straight downward, and it may completely overcome the phase. The force it will be working. The moment of a sediment material, it's away from the source by the using of the water, wind, and ice particles. The rounded particles which are occurs due to abrasion during the transport. And suppose if you see the sorting of a material, the sorting of a material the sorting of a material is separating the according to grain size by the transporting agents, especially it is a running water. The sediment size decreases with the increased transport distance. So as per this, it is transporting to one place to the another, or sometimes maybe if it is a wind, the wind it is also playing a very important role on transportation. The wind has a capability to break up the transported material into coarse size to the finer size. The grains transported by wind show the perfectly spherical forms, indicating the long transportation according to the homogeneity and uniformity. We know that the dust and more rarely fine sand are carried the suspension material upward as much as high into the atmosphere. Some of the dust is so fine, it remained suspended until the washed out by rain. And next one, it is a deposition. In a deposition, the final destination, it is a transport material, definitely it should be deposited somewhere. That's the deposition takes place when the velocity of a transport agent is checked, whether the change it is a physical or a chemical conditions it's required for that. The nature of variation mineralogical compositions of any sedimentary formations or semi-sedimentary rocks that depend on some factors. The composition of the source rock subjected to the weathering, the degree and the mode of weathering, modification sedimentary material that occurs during the transportation, the speed of the agent is also required, the nature of the amount is a sedimentary load, and it should be a distribution. Yeah, settling and coming to the rest of a transported material, the accumulation of a chemical or organic sediments, which typically is the inclusion of a water. The environment deposition is required to the location where it is a deposition occur. Example for right, it is a deep sea floor, beach, desert dunes, river channel, lake bottoms, or whatever it is. The depositional environments are difficult to classify when we go into the very detailed study. It's depend on multiple factors will be affecting, and the material carried in a suspension or in other ways by agents in a deposited mechanically due to the check in the velocity. Such deposits are known as a clastic or detrital rocks. See here. What is a clastic and a detrital rocks? These materials were formed by the agents, and here physically it will be impacting. Physical weathering it will be impacting. The same material is carried out into solution deposition. Either it's the water directly the physical or chemical process, and such as having the precipitation evaporation and other organisms, it will be reacting with the same material. And such type of rocks are known as a non-plastic rocks, or it's known as a non-material rocks. Suppose the material, whatever it is carried or whatever it is transported into the basin, and it is deposited as a layer by layer. Each layer we are calling the thing as a bed. It has some characteristic features like a color, texture, hardness, cohesion, comparison, or composition. Size. These factors will impacting. The different beds are formed by these factors. The plane, it is separating one bed from to another. It is called as a bedding plane. Bedding plane means it's separating between the one bed to the another bed. The plane, it is called as a bedding plane. Suppose if the bed, it is very thin, or it's a paper, the thickness may be less than 1 centimeter. It is known as a lamina. If it is more than 1 centimeter thick, if it is more than 1 centimeter thick, that is known as a stratum. It is known as a stratum. Okay, now I'm stopping here. We'll discuss tomorrow. Thank you.